Hello everyone, I am Nayangiri Gosavi and this is Current to Concept, where we go beyond the headlines to build the conceptual clarity that every UPSC aspirant needs. Today, we revisit the Red Corridor and explore a development that is far more than a headline. It is a window into India's deepest governance dilemmas and the evolving architecture of our national security. The security forces in Andhra Pradesh neutralized one of the most feared Maoist commanders, Madhvi Hidma, along with 13 other cadres in two tightly coordinated encounters. This is not an isolated incident. It is in many ways the story of how the Indian state negotiates power, justice, development, and legitimacy in regions where its presence has historically been either weak or contested. For a UPSC aspirant, this incident is gold, because one single piece of news touches society, history, polity, federalism, technology, ethics, and internal security. This is exactly what the exam demands: the ability to take one contemporary event and unpack it through the full lens of the UPSC syllabus. So today, let us do that, not mechanically, but with intellectual honesty and an administrator's imagination. A brief look at the social and historical roots of left-wing extremism in these tribal forest regions. The Maredumilli area in Andhra Pradesh, part of the Andhra-Odisha border zone, is home to marginalized tribal communities who have long grappled with underdevelopment, land alienation, and weak state presence. The story of Hidma and his cadre is not just a security threat. It is a symptom of an old wound in India's social fabric, where land inequality and neglect have bred resentment and an alternate political order. Sociologically, Emily Durkheim's concept of anomic suicide is relevant here. Just as individuals feel unmoved when social norms break down, communities too feel rootless when state institutions do not protect their dignity. Scholars like Walter Fernandez have shown how decades of displacement, land alienation, and extractive development created a sense of historic injustice among these communities. When political scientists have been talking about the everyday forms of resistance, they might have been well describing these regions where silence, mistrust, and sporadic violent assertion replace democratic participation. Now, from this social lens, let us shift to the constitutional and governance dimension. The area where this encounter took place, the AOB zone, is a classic example of what Ajay Sahani calls a governance vacuum, spaces where the state exists physically but not experientially. Thus, the state, which is meant to be a welfare provider, is an abstract power here, and Maoists exploited exactly these gaps. The fact that coordinated action happened across a tri-state border, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh, reveals the complexity of federal coordination in internal security. It shows that while states remain primarily responsible for law and order, central forces, interstate cooperation, and intelligence sharing are absolutely crucial in combating non-state extremist threats. Internal security, as UPSC repeatedly tests, is not only about guns and encounters. It is also about the quality of governance and the capacity of Indian federalism. Law and order is a state subject, but left-wing extremism cuts across these three states, multiple forest belts, and shared ethnic communities. The recent operation highlights how federal coordination, especially through unified command structures and joint intelligence teams, is indispensable. At the same time, the Constitution's promise under Article 21, which is the right to life, stands as a moral compass even during counterinsurgency. The Supreme Court in Extrajudicial Execution Victim Families Association versus Union of India case of 2016 stressed that the state action must remain accountable even in disturbed areas. This means that the success of such operations must always be balanced with procedural integrity, transparency, and humane engagement with local communities. Now, the security architecture, which is central to our GS Paper 3. The killing of Hidma, who was trained in guerrilla warfare and masterminded multiple major attacks, is strategically significant. Even more telling is the elimination of Tech Shankar, the technical mastermind responsible for the IED fabrication, encryption systems, and logistics. His loss indicates that Maoist technical capacity is eroding, a shift security experts have been predicting for years. This encounter also reveals something very important, that is the changing nature of India's security apparatus. Intelligence-driven operations, night vision technologies, drone-aided surveillance, and modern communication networks are steadily tilting the balance in favor of the state. But technology alone is never enough. Successful counterinsurgency rests on what scholars like Kanti Bajpai calls comprehensive national power. The synergy of security force, capability, governance efficiency, and social legitimacy. And that legitimacy comes not from encounters, but from development. Maoism, as policy analysts argue, is primarily a result of that developmental deprivation. Road connectivity, the PVTG welfare missions, forest rights implementation, and decentralized tribal governance remain the true long-term antidotes to extremism. Forced by reality, even the security establishment now embraces the idea that development is the master strategy and security is the facilitator. There's also a deeply ethical dimension to all of this, which points towards our GS paper 4, the realm of values in public service. Encounters, even when necessary, raise uncomfortable questions. The use of force, even in justified counterinsurgency, poses moral dilemmas. Is it fair to take lives even of armed insurgents? How do we restore trust in communities that feel under siege? How do we justify lethal force while upholding the democratic morality? For public officials, the challenge is to balance security imperatives with human dignity. Leadership in these zones demands virtues like courage, empathy, integrity, and respect for human rights. Civil servants and security personnel must not view this only as a kill or capture mission. They must see it as a mission to restore the social contract, to build a state that is not just powerful but legitimate in the eyes of its people. To summarize, in GS Paper 1, connect this issue to tribal marginalization, land alienation, and the regional disparities. In GS Paper 2, link it to federal coordination, human rights, constitutional morality, and governance gaps. In GS Paper 3, use it for internal security, technology in warfare, counterinsurgency strategies, and the role of CAPFs. And in GS Paper 4, use this as a case study on ethical dilemmas in policing, accountability of power, and leadership in conflict zones. In conclusion, the recent killings in Andhra Pradesh expose the multidimensional nature of left-wing extremism rooted in historical injustice, sustained by governance failure, challenged by security operations, development deficits, tribal injustices, and the ethical responsibilities of the state. For us as future policymakers and administrators, this moment calls for an integrated approach. We must fight extremism with both muscle and mind, with policy and morality. This is how you convert a single news event into a multidimensional answer, exactly how the UPSC expects. If India must defeat left-wing extremism, it must not only eliminate armed violence, but it also must eliminate the reasons why violence felt like the last language for so many. If this session has enriched your perspective or your UPSC preparation, don't forget to follow the channel for more such timely updates. You'll find today's notes in the description box below. Thank you and keep learning.